You know most coaches because you saw them as a player, or they were already a coach at an elite club and you didn't see them as a player, but you know that they played. And there's very, very few, although there are some people who are top level coaches because they play top level football. Very few in their 30s or even at 30 become a top flight coach and are getting stopped in the street for selfies without having played the game. But that's exactly what was happening to 30-year-old Will Still. Age 30 in France, he was being stopped on a regular basis for selfies, despite having never played top-level football. An Englishman raised in Belgium, back in 2022 became the youngest head coach of any of Europe's major leagues. And his rise is far from conventional. He was making headlines for going on a record unbeaten run with the modest, I think it's safe to say, Stade de Reims, even holding PSG's superstars to draws twice, all while not even having the required UEFA Pro license to even coach at that level. In fact, Reims cheerfully paid a £22,000 fine every match he was in charge just to let him coach. From a self-confessed football manager addict to the new boss of Southampton. Will Still's journey sounds like some sort of a football fairy tale. I saw a comment which is, Will Still is what every football tactico on Twitter thinks they are. And it made me laugh because it's probably true. But I want to delve into how much of the legend and the myth around Will Still is true and what makes him such a fascinating figure in football management. So, when he was introduced as the coach who got his start playing Football Manager. Like, yeah, him and every other manager out there. But there is truth to the tale. As a teenager, Will Still became obsessed with playing Football Manager, and it genuinely did inspire him to pursue coaching. At 17, realising that he enjoyed the strategy off the pitch more than on it, he enrolled in a football coaching course at Myerscough College in England. So yeah, the video game absolutely helped spark his career choice. But the myth that he simply gamed his way into a top job skips over a lot of work and a lot of years in doing that work. Will himself has played down the Football Manager legend label, emphasising that he gained plenty of real-world experience before he got that break. But in his own words, he doesn't want to be seen just as some lucky gamer. He put the miles in on the training ground and in the analysis room. But the bottom line is, Football Manager absolutely gave him some ideas, but the grit, the coaching, and the real nous that you see when, you know, his appearance on Monday Night Football recently was, I thought it was world class. And the bits of coaching that because I've followed his career the last few years since he broke onto the scene a few years ago. Every time I see him, he comes across as articulate, intelligent, and he seems like he understands the game in a fantastic level. I'm very excited for what he's going to deliver to Southampton. Now, his unconventional path, maybe it started with the digital world, but it also had humble real-life beginnings. Born in 92, English parents in Belgium. He grew up bilingual and, like many of us, football obsessed. By 21, he landed himself a role as a video analyst at a small Belgian club called Sint-Truiden, and he immersed himself in the tactical side of the game. Probably learned a hell of a lot at that time. He then followed the coach Yannick Ferreira to Standard Liège, where he learned firsthand how a professional club operates, until that staff was fired and still didn't know what to do. That setback turned into an opportunity, because in 2017, at just 24 years of age, he was offered an assistant job at Liège. And when the head coach departed, he stepped up as caretaker manager, and he shocked everyone. That brief tenure, he won 7 out of 9 games at Liège, a 77.8 win rate. And it was remarkable success, actually, for a rookie manager at, professional club. It happened to make him the youngest head coach in the Belgian professional football at the time, and it did not go unnoticed. Now, unfortunately, the Liège fairy tale was cut short. The club was declared bankrupt soon after, and he moved to another Belgian side, Beerschot. Again as an assistant, in January 2021, Beerschot, newly promoted to Belgium's top division, handed him the head coach reins mid-season. Once again, he proved himself, and he guided them to a strong finish. He just missed out on a European playoff spot by a single point. His record at Beerschot, 6 wins in 15 games. Not quite the 80% win rate that he had previously. Certainly doesn't scream overnight sensation. Doesn't scream, oh my God, give him a 10-year contract and let him completely overhaul the club. But what he achieved at a small club, showing a real knack for squeezing performance out of very unfancied squads, left a bit of a lasting legacy. And he's still in his early 20s. Seeing him go from video analyst to assistant coach to one of Belgium's youngest top-flight managers is an astonishing rise, and fueled by a bit of opportunity, a bit of risk, and certainly a little bit of talent. You know, he himself admits got lucky at the right times with those early appointments. So where did he kick on? Well, his big break came in Ligue 1. In 2021, he joined Stade de Reims as an assistant to Oscar Garcia, and when Garcia was sacked in 2022, Reims did what every other club has done that he's worked at and went, do you fancy having a go? And he did. He was going to be a stopgap. But what happened next vaulted him into the spotlight. Reims went on a 17-game unbeaten run in Ligue 1. Now, 17 games, so that's not incredible, but it's the longest in the club's history. When he took charge, they were 15th, and by the run's peak, they'd climbed all the way to 8th. By the season's end, they finished a pretty respectable 11th, which is far clearer relegation. And this is a team that was expected to struggle, a squad that was full of loanees, bargain signings, and suddenly, Will is the toast of French football. The rookie that's outwitted Paris Saint-Germain twice, revitalised his underdog side mid-season, and he was formally given the job full-time, and Reims even had another solid mid-table finish again. They came 11th again. That's when opportunity knocked elsewhere. And it wasn't just the results, it was how he achieved them. What Will has done is foster a fearless mindset, not just at Reims, but at the clubs that he's worked at. Focusing on what they were good at, giving the players confidence, not worry about the name on the back of those PSG shirts. Yes, so what? It's Messi, it's Mbappe. Don't care. He focused his man management, and his attention to detail is what stood out. And it's what stands out if you go and watch that Monday Night Football special that he did. The attention to detail is sensational. He knows exactly what he wants to do in every single area of the pitch. And I can tell that he works on that on the pitch. Throughout that success, there was that quirky fact, the lack of the UEFA Pro license, which is very difficult to get on, admittedly. But a 22 grand a game fine quickly became a bit of a running joke in the press conferences. Now, to Reims' credit, and obviously deep pockets, they were happy to pay for the positive results. By early 2023, he become something of a bit of a cult hero. That football manager moniker, proving himself as a real manager, breaking records, doing it his own way. And then in June 2024, he took the next step, moved to RC Lens, a historic French club, a big French club, one that's enjoyed a little bit of a renaissance. They were runners-up in the 22-23 Ligue 1 season under Frank Hals. So it was a big leap in expectations. No more managing the underdog. Now managing a team that's tasted Champions League. Big shoes to fill. And the season at Lens was a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, he improved the team's points per game rate a little bit. He's shown that he could scale up from a club now fighting and expected to be fighting for European places. Lens finished 8th, which was outside the European space, which is a step down from the heights of previous years. And some in France viewed that as a bit of a slump for him. But context matters here. Lens underwent a bit of a fire sale during Will's tenure. Nearly 100 million worth of players were sold. Eli Wahi, some key defenders. There was no investment. So Will was steering a weaker squad through choppy waters. Considering the hype around his name, there was some disappointment, though it all can't be blamed on Still, is what one Ligue 1 expert sort of said. The exodus in talent was what hampered them. And despite those challenges, 8th place kept them competitive, and he earned a lot of respect for how he navigated that situation. By spring 2025, he had something else on his mind. His partner was in England, recovering from a serious illness, and Will felt it was time to turn the page and to leave Lens, to be closer to family. And he announced his departure from Lens at the end of the season, immediately sparking speculation of a return to English football. And I think that appearance on Monday Night Football was quite a calculated move, and it was a good move. Enter Southampton. Now, spoken a little bit about his coaching and stuff like that, but what's his style of play? What's his footballing philosophy? Now, I would say he's quite a modern, flexible tactician. I think he's been quite pragmatic. At Reims, he had a dynamic but disciplined kind of team. They were hard to beat. A hallmark of his is the intense pressing style. I expect that to be something that carries over at Southampton. And Reims under Still had the most aggressive pressing metrics. They harried opponents high up the pitch. He's not afraid to ask his team to really go man for man and to press high to regain possession. His sides will work tirelessly off the ball, but he's not just a one-trick pony. He's actually set up in a tight low block when needed. He's channeled opponents' attacks out wide where they can be less dangerous. His adaptability has become a bit of a signature. At Reims, you would see them in a 4-2-3-1, but you would also see them transition to a 3-5-2 very, very smoothly, almost unnoticeable at times. At Lens, he often alternated between having a back four and a wing-back system depending on who they were playing against. His tactical acumen was on full display with that headline-grabbing 0-0. No one's expecting you to get anything out of PSG with Mbappe and the full suite of players that they've got at their disposal. He plays a 3-5-2, not only keeps a clean sheet, but he actually outshot them over 90 minutes. It was a masterclass in both organisation and belief. And he later explained that the success from that came from instilling confidence in the players, focusing on what they were good at rather than fearing what the opponents do. Another element of the way he sets his teams up is the rest defence. Now, rest defence is basically how your team shapes up when the opposition are in their half and you're in possession and just waiting to see what happens. I like to be +1 and I don't complicate it much more than that. So if my opponent has one forward, I'm happy as long as I've got two back. That means one can press the ball and one can cover. If they've got two forward, I want at least three. If they leave three, which never really happens against us, then I want four to stay back. So +1 is my rest defence philosophy, but there's a bit of detail and a bit of nuance in where they would line up. When it comes to Will Stills, his rest defence is extremely in-depth. He likes to commit up to 6 players forward in the build-up, and he generally keeps about 4 back. So if they are caught out of possession, you've got to think the teams he's managing as well are generally the underdogs wherever he plays, but he likes to keep around about 4 back. He's described specific training ground routines that he's done. He drops one attacker into midfield, they get on the ball, they look to try and break the press when they're playing out from the back, and he looks to try and position those resting defenders in certain key positions to maximise their chances of winning the ball and going on the attack from where they do. I think he's got really thoughtful insight. He's very detail orientated, and I think he blends sort of pressing intensity with structure in behind it. So if you do lose the ball, you're in a position to be able to deal with that. And he's just 32. And I think he already has the clarity and the confidence of a much, much older, more experienced manager in how he sets his teams up and how he carries himself. Now, that success in France and in Belgium didn't escape notice back home. And I think for a lot of people, they really saw him following that guest appearance on Monday Night Football recently. He walked through the viewers through Lens' tactical approach with clarity and confidence that I don't think people have seen, certainly from a bit of an unknown coach. He broke down video clips. He explained how he trains his players to press, how to defend in position, and basically impressed every single person that was watching. I mean, I've been sent the clips 25 times from various different people. It's not often such a young coach is going to get, certainly a League One coach, he's going to get invited on a Premier League broadcast. Like I said, I feel like his agent played an absolute blinder there, putting him in front of everyone because his profile back at home rocketed. Maybe he knew he was signing for Southampton. Maybe that Southampton had, stage managed this a little bit to give him a little bit of recognition at home amongst the more casual kind of fans. But the clips of that Monday Night Football analysis went absolutely viral. Fans praising the tactical insight, the down-to-earth style, and you can see why players would want to play for him because he seems very amenable. Southampton fans watching on Monday Night Football have reacted, as you can imagine, they're loving it. They're looking at this fresh, prospective new manager, speaking their language, articulating vision of modern football and impressing everybody. Rumours were swirling that he was going to take over at St Mary's. Saints fans lost their shit. Julian Lorenz said Southampton would be very lucky to have Will Still, one of the brightest young managers in Europe, tactical ability, man management skills, and the way he conducts himself. Such a great guy to have. I know Jules, great praise from a great analyst. And I think that really kicked up the excitement for Southampton fans a notch. And I think he's down-to-earth demeanour. He's a bit of a Brit aboard, but he calls it like a fan. And I think that's helping supporters and maybe even players relate to him. The fact that he's a lifelong West Ham fan, glued to the Premier League, I think only adds to his sort of English football credibility. Now, it's not without reservations. Some Southampton fans have pointed out the obvious. He's young. He's relatively inexperienced. It's true. One fan said, I'd happily give Still a chance, but lack of experience, it's a big risk. It's a big risk with anyone. I think people generally do overstate what managers can and can't do. It is about the recruitment, but I think he can do all right. Now, it will be a baptism of fire because the English Championship, let alone the Premier League, is a knife fight. Week in, week out, pressure cooker. I think it makes players. I think it'd be safe to say it could make and break managers at the same time as well. Others talking about Will's fresh approach and his man management could be exactly what a demoralised Southampton squad needs. He is he is progressive, low-budget squads, kind of known for the man management sort of way of getting a bit of a tune out of people. A lot of people are talking about that being the exact sort of thing that will rejuvenate a squad that's, had a pretty dismal campaign. One optimistic Saints supporter said, it's hope versus caution. And I think that's the sort of perfect way to phrase it. I think Will Still's appointment is one of the most intriguing in English football. I have followed him since he broke onto the scene a couple of years ago. And every time I see him, I find him such an articulate, intelligent guy. And I actually wish him luck. But why is it we think Southampton, a club with ambitions to get back into the Premier League, have put their faith in him like this? Well, I actually think that the fit makes a lot of sense. Obviously relegated in 2025. It's a team that's in search of an identity, in search of a rebuild. He's made a name building identities at underdog clubs. He's focused on youth, intensity, togetherness. At Rame, he moulded a young team that punched above his weight. And I think that template aligns with what Southampton's project of developing young talent and playing brave, high-energy football, is what they say, is all about. I think he's accustomed to working on a budget, thriving without star names, probably what he's going to have to deal with at Southampton. In France, he was dubbed a miracle for succeeding in a culture that's really tough on young coaches without playing reputations. And I think that's exactly what he's going to need to cut his teeth and survive in, Southampton are going to see themselves as a bit of a big fish in the Championship pond. So he's not going to be able to come eighth. He's going to have to push. But beyond the tactical fit, I think the tactical fit is legit. I think for him, Southampton does represent a bit of a homecoming. He said, it's just home, but I want to come home. When he was speaking in an interview asked about working in England. After years abroad, he's coming back to the country whose football he grew up idolising. And he's doing so at a club that seems to embrace new ideas. His statement upon being unveiled at Southampton did speak about the huge potential and the great opportunity to do something special, the sort of stuff every manager says in all honesty. But he says he wants to build a clear identity and a positive future for the team. And that's the sort of style of play that he will bring. He is a guy that looks for positive stuff. And I think it's also the sort of language that Saints fans probably wanted to hear after such a disappointing, turbulent season. Either way, his story is compelling because it's refreshing. It's an outsider that's turned to an insider. It's someone that doesn't look or sound or have the same background as a typical kind of football manager. He's a football analyst by training. Yes, a child of football manager like all of us, but he's a fearless coach that went toe-to-toe with Europe's best and came off pretty well. From his journey as a teenager, clicking through tactics on his PC, to standing on the touchline at St Mary's, if he can get them into the Premier League, that's going down in football folklore. But for now, yeah, the next chapter awaits on England's south coast. If he can apply his philosophy and move Southampton into the future in a manner that he did with Reim, this weird, unconventional ginger manager could end up being one of the biggest things to happen to English football. And who knows, maybe a future England manager. But it's a fascinating tale so far. I expect him to be referenced for a long time as the football manager guy. I think that's just the way lazy journalism is in this country. But make no mistake, he is a legit manager. He knows what he's doing. His tactical acumen is high. And I'll be watching Southampton to see what sort of impact he's able to have on them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're interested in me doing more sort of deep dives in other managers or other appointments or other transfers or tactics or anything like that, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.